Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
He's so proud of himself. I groaned. You could go back and watch it.
No one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right. I want to ask Dr.
Boo! And then, speaking of absurd, did you guys see the Republican presidential primary debate last night? It went off the rail multiple times.
Honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say.
There were
Nikki, I feel that way anytime I hear any Republican talk. I agree wholeheartedly.
Honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say.
There were
She was referring to Vivek.
last night's presidential primary debate in Simi Valley, California.
7 Republican hopefuls faced off for a second time, even without President Trump there in person. He was still addressed by the candidates, though.
Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record.
Nah, he's not afraid.
And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
First Donald Duck reference of the campaign cycle. Some say the winner of last night's messy debate may have been the former president himself, even though he wasn't on stage.
Let's bring in King 5 political analyst and former Washington Attorney General Rob McKenna to talk more about this debate. Rob, did you feel like there was a clear winner last night?
No, I didn't really think so. I think they were all scrambling to reinforce their positions, but I don't think there were any real breakthrough moments.
7 candidates on stage. Rob, did the debate make one bit of difference? I want to pull up the latest poll, NBC News poll, showing the former president still in a commanding lead of this race right now. 59% of those polled suggest he's the one they want to be the next president.
I think Tim Scott probably did the best in the debate.
What do you make of this? And what do you make of how these candidates are going after Donald Trump right now?
Well, I think it's notable that former President Trump's numbers are growing. His lead is expanding. I'm a little surprised to see Republican voters coalesce around him at this level already. On the other hand, he's the former president. He gets a ton of media attention, and Joe Biden is really quite unpopular. So I think the other candidates are struggling to deliver a message to voters to persuade them to switch over. And frankly, their hits on Trump last night were pretty soft.
Governor Ron DeSantis coming in second in these polls. Do you think that his performance last night kept it?
I was pretty soft after watching the debate.
Nikki Haley make some waves.
Yeah,
none of them really got me hard.
Progress, particularly gaining some ground on DeSantis if you look at where she started and where she is now. And so, I think he reinforced his current position by hammering away on his talking points, and that former Governor Haley, again, I think impressed in a number of ways. You could tell, by the way, that she did, the most to help herself in the first debate, that she moved up the most because of the time the other candidates like Tim Scott spent attacking her. So it's always the person who seems to be pulling ahead a little bit who comes under attack at the next debate.
Yeah, also in that poll, Nikki Haley, the only one that would beat President Biden in a hypothetical.
Bergam.
Too interesting to note there.
He sucks.
The moderation, of course, kind of questionable last night, frankly, at this debate.
Tried to put his foot in the door last night.
Republican debate, Rob, compared to the first one.
Yeah, it feels like the moderators are trying a little too hard to manipulate the debaters, and they're trying to make themselves the center of attention more than I would like to see. That moment where the candidates were asked who to vote off the island in a kind of survivor.
Yeah, that was wild.
It just really fell flat.
Yeah, and the whole debate between Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley about TikTok got a little
very interesting,
heated as well. Were there any topics that were not covered or addressed that you felt should have been?
They did go after President Biden, but there wasn't much talk about Hunter Biden, about the impeachment inquiry that's starting today, or
Because it's bullshit.
government shutdown, and that surprised me a bit. They did spend a fair amount of time talking about the United Auto Workers strike, and in a sign that the Republican Party has become a lot more populist, most of the candidates were pretty careful to either not take sides or side with the workers.
The Trump campaign wants to cancel the future debates. No word on whether that would happen or not. We'll have to keep an eye out on that. Former Attorney General and our King 5 political analyst Rob McKenna up.
Wants to cancel the rest of the debates. That Trump. That's such a Trump move. The UAW responded to Trump's speech last night. Let me be blunt. The UAW VP for GM has strong words about Trump's visit to Michigan. The UAW's lead negotiator in contract talks with General Motors on Wednesday issued a scathing assessment of former President Donald Trump hours before Trump was due to speak in Detroit. UAW Vice President for General Motors Mike Booth sent the Detroit Free Press a profanity-laden email about his thoughts on Trump's trip to Michigan. Let me be blunt. Donald Trump is coming off as a pompous fuckwad, asshole, cunt, bitch face. I don't know. Expletive is what the story says. Coming to Michigan to speak at a non-union employer and pretending it has anything to do with our fight at the Big Three is just more verbal diarrhea from the former president. Trump was expected to deliver a primetime remarks at Drake Enterprises in Clinton Township. The auto part supplier is non-unionized. According to the AP report, Trump will speak to a crowd of several hundred current and former UAW members, as well as members of plumbers and pipe fitters unions. I question some of the signs that we saw that union workers for Trump. Trump, of course, labeled Donald Duck coming out of the GOP debate. You heard it during that piece we just saw from the local news. I groaned when it happened, but apparently it worked. Donald Duck Trump meme spreads like wildfire. After Christie, does that say jibe? It was a jab.
And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
He's so proud of himself. I groaned. You could go back and watch it. Chris Christie's attack on former President Donald Trump during the GOP debate has already been turned into a viral meme. 7 GOP presidential candidates hit the stage. Look at him. He looks emasculated standing next to Trump. One person then took that comment about the famous Disney character by turning it into a meme. Oh, shit. Do we not get to see the meme? Corny ass shit indeed. That's what I think. Let me hit the content warning before we get some real corny ass shit. Chris Christie was on with Joe and Mika this morning. Apparently he was the winner, right? If he's on, at least he is with the shit libs.
Republican debate. Joining us now is one of the candidates who was on the stage at the Reagan Library last night, former New Jersey Governor Christie. Chris, thanks for being on this morning. I gotta ask you. What the heck was that? What happened last night? Donald Trump is the front runner. He's the former president of the United States. A judge found him liable for massive fraud, and he called for the execution of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. How is it that nobody in the room?
Well, did that happen
last night?
Well, Mika, what I did last night was take on Donald Trump directly as I have.
Or was that the thing that's in Millie's book that's coming out? And that's why he was in the news the other day. Is that what they're referring to?
Have all throughout. I took him on Ukraine. I took him on his relationship with Putin. I took him on his failure to show up. I took him on adding $7 trillion to national debt. I took him on failure to build the wall in Mexico. So, I've only have so much time, Mika. I hit all of those things. And so maybe some of the points you wanted to have hit weren't hit. But I was trying to be responsive to the questions that were asked.
Speaking of hit.
Execution of the Mark Milley. He called for the death of
Mika. And Mika, I talked about that this week. I talked about that this week on social media. I talked about it on other interviews I did beforehand. And it's hard for me to believe that I would come on to your show this morning after what I did and said last night, and that you have criticisms that I didn't go after Donald Trump enough. Maybe it's just too early out here in California for me, and I didn't quite hear what you were saying. But come on.
My question, it's not just you. I'm asking what was going on in that room that never came, like these two major headlines.
Tones, good evening.
Donald Trump, one that's absolutely frightening. Okay, what is going on in that room with all of the Republican candidates? What is happening? What universe are we in that doesn't come up? I'm not specifically pointing at you, but doesn't it seem strange?
Now, look.
And he's the front runner.
I'm not going to sit up here and be defense counsel for the other 6 candidates, because I did my job last night. I was the only one who went directly after Donald Trump on all the issues I just spoke about. And I hope that you get to have each one of them on and ask them why they won't do it. I'll tell you why they won't do it, because they all want to either be Trump's running mate or in a cabinet if he becomes the nominee or becomes the president. So I have no interest in that. I've been offered all those positions before by him.
I think Mike Pence has been there, done that.
I turned them down.
I don't know what Pence's game is here.
President of the United States, and that's why I was making the case about American involvement in Ukraine last night. Why I was making the case on why our national debt is unsustainable.
So Vivek is probably going to be a talk show host or something. Christie is probably going to be like a correspondent on MSNBC or CNN. Tim Scott probably has a future run for president. He's raising his profile for the next cycle or the cycle after. Haley as well could be next cycle. What is Pence's end game? What does he get out of this? Pence just wants mother to be proud of him. Well, he's done a good job.
Why I was making the case last night about the education system and how it is failing our children and their families. And so that's why I was out there making that case I could last night on the questions I was asked. And I was not going to get involved in the food fight that went on, like between Nikki Haley and Tim Scott about drapes in the residence of the UN ambassador. I don't think that's something that's going to improve the lives of the American people. So I decided to stick on other issues.
For those of you who weren't there, he asked if the drapes matched the curtains.
Let's try it here. I know you've talked about it earlier in the week, but just for our audience, and this morning after the debate, the former president of the United States suggested this week that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, 4-star General Milley, should be executed for treason for calling China around the 2020 election in January 6th to tell them the nuclear arsenal was secure. Is that disqualifying of Donald Trump?
Well, it's just another thing, Willie, that disqualifies him from being an appropriate candidate for president of the United States for our party and for being president himself at all. Look, Mark Milley has given this country extraordinary service, and I have great respect for him. And the fact is,
he's too woke.
This is a pattern with Donald Trump, and you all know.
He reads.
If you don't agree with everything he says, you don't do everything he wants you to do, whether it's legal or illegal, ethical or unethical, right or wrong.
An absolute mad lad.
And last night, after the debate was over, the proof of who made the greatest impact was that Donald Trump was posting on Truth Social about me and only me, not the other candidates in this race. He's the one I'm the one he's the most afraid of. And what he said about Mark Milley,
I don't think he's afraid at all.
But it is not surprising because he's called on that for other people before.
I want to make it perfectly clear that I don't think, like, Christie has said multiple times that Donald Trump is afraid, and I don't think Trump is afraid at all. That's not the reason why he's not debating. And, like, so, like, I went back and forth on it, because if I was Trump, I would go and do the debate. Like, if I was advising Trump, I don't know, because I'm sure his advisors are saying you have nothing to gain and everything to lose, but, like, I think he'd go in and wreck them all.